Welcome back. Well, in the last episode, we installed the shell plate. I would call it something a little bit fancier than a shell plate. It was a shell plate assembly that you saw. We installed the shell plate and we installed the case feeding mechanism of the appropriate size, because they're all size specific to the different size primers and case sizes. We also installed we did a preliminary installation without fine adjustments of the priming pin and the swaging pin. I presume that there'll be a more precise adjustment, so I'll leave that cover off for later on. And we installed the primer tube assembly. Is that right? He wants to do something more exciting than put this together. So, and we ran a full check, and after we installed the head back on with the retention screw, that cap screw, and everything is cycling just beautifully. Everything is positioning as it should. Very, very smooth with no friction. We did clean up quite a bit of the packing oils. But today, what we're going to be talking about is really contained on only 2 pages, and it has to do with the installation of the powder drop, the powder charging assembly. This is going to incorporate a few different procedures that will take up the entire video, so let's get at it. Benny, can you just be a little bit patient? No? Anyway, hopefully we'll settle down here so we can finish up this process. But the very first thing that we're instructed to do is naturally to clean off any packing lubricants from the anything that will contact powder, and that includes, as a matter of fact, within this box right here is a different size powder charging assemblies. Now these are the powder charging tubes, but they also, as far as I understand, they accommodate the different case lengths. So there are 3 of them. There's one installed within the press right now, and everything by default was for small rifle. So what we're going to be doing is installing large rifle. Now you can see this whole case here is filled with packing oil. That's going to be a constant problem every time I go to change things out. So I'm not only going to wash these parts right here and clean them up, degrease them thoroughly, and dry them, but I'm also going to take out this mat right here, and I'm going to wash that and dry it too, because I don't want to have, from this point forward, I want to make sure that every time I handle these parts that they're completely free of any powder attracting oils. So we'll clean that up. We'll also clean up any apparent oils and greases that are on this. I don't see any within this powder drum. I see no oil whatsoever, so I'm going to stay away from cleaning the drum out. I will perhaps swab it with some alcohol, and that will make sure that it is thoroughly clean. I have made a couple of observations about this. I've been using a RCBS Uniflow powder measure, which is on the same principle, probably for 45, close to 50 years. And the one thing I noticed about this is that this whole assembly the drum does not turn against the frame. As a matter of fact, the drum is turning within 2 bearings. They look like automotive bearings on each side that you'd find on wheels. So that's a really that's a fantastic invention. And there are also 2 on each side. There are 2 screws and washers which provide some friction so that it doesn't start spinning out of control, I guess. So, but it's a great thing to do. What we've got to do first of all is remove this screw up here on the support shaft, and that will allow this lower unit to come off, and that's where the powder charging tube goes. Now, this is under spring pressure. So being under spring pressure, you want to make sure you guard against having this fly apart and possibly doing damage. Make sure you're wearing eyeglasses, protective glasses when you're doing this. Get a driver of the appropriate size. It looks like it's probably 3 millimeter, and that it is. I'm gonna position that on the bench and use the pressure of the rod against the bench, so that when I back that off, Benny's really. Benny, can't you be a little bit more patient, huh? In your old age. I guess he had his nap earlier, so now he's full of it. He wants to do something. So that is under spring pressure. We'll remove that rod, and this now requires that I take out these 2 screws, and when I take out these 2 screws, that will allow that assembly to slide out, and that's a 2.5 millimeter, I believe. Let's just check it out one more time. Yep. So back those off. And remove them so that you don't scratch your hub here. Now there's a couple of bushings, so make sure you don't lose those bushings. Take those out, and the supported side of the bushing goes to inboard. So in other words, the T-top on that bushing, the nylon bushings. Remove the other one. Screw. Carefully remove the bushing without losing it. And now, be careful you don't drop this, because that's nothing supporting it now. So this is simply removed, and I did drop the tube on the floor, just as I was saying that. So here's your powder tube, and as you can see, that's loaded with oil, the same as the one that came in the 2 that are in the box. So this entire lower unit, everything that you see here, I'm going to bring up to the sink. I'm going to wash these off very, very well with dish detergent and water and dry them. And as a hint, now this is something I've known for many, many years. I was taught this by an old timer who was reloading 50 years before I began. And he said, when you get done washing these with detergent, don't rinse them off. Leave the detergent water on them and then just dry them off, because that detergent is anti-static, and that anti-static will prevent powder cling. So if you want to prevent powder from clinging to your parts, do just that. Wash them with detergent, soap, and water, and then just wipe off and dry the parts without rinsing them off with regular water. So I'm going to be upstairs, clean these up, and I'll be back. So everything you see here has been completely degreased. I washed these very thoroughly in Dawn dish detergent and hot water, and thoroughly dried them. And as I said, I did not rinse them. I rinsed some of these parts that may be rinsed, but for the most part, I left anything that was going to be in contact with powder, with the film of detergent on it, and just allowed them to dry. You can wipe them off, but just don't rinse them off, and you'll have static-free parts. This is the lower portion of the powder assembly, and here's the upper portion. Everything went in the drink, everything. So I examined this very thoroughly, and there was no reason I couldn't put this right into the hot water, into the detergent, and allow it to thoroughly degrease. Now there's some there's some moisture on that drum down inside there. It's going to have plenty of time to dry off. I'll give that a little bit of a drying with my towel here. Make sure it's a completely oil-free towel. So this has all been completely washed and dried. I'll allow it to air dry before I do any loading. As I say, I even took this sponge, this top off here, and degreased that thoroughly and dried that out too. And I won't even close that up until I know that that's been completely dry, so that it's not in contact with the parts. Now they laser engrave everything with what these parts are. This one clearly states large rifle case length, and it gives the case length on there. 1.875 or greater. In other words, any case which is greater than 1.875 in length, you would use this, and that's the situation with 308 cases. This one here is small rifle, and this is from, let's see, 1.25 inches, 1 1/4 inches up to 1.875, and so forth. This is the pistol, and the pistol is from 600s to 1 1/4 inch long. So that's how those are all identified. Pretty cool. So if this looks like a die, that's exactly what it is. This is your powder die. And your drop tube adapter, which is this piece right here, which I've identified for large rifle, that'll go in with the large side up. And now we're going to place this back together with the upper portion. The rod bushing is to the rear, and the thimble for your adjustments to the front. And we'll just reassemble these. As you can see, with the thimble in the completely down position, it aligns with this hole right here on the drum. So I'll put the bushing back in, and the bushing, remember, goes with the large diameter toward the mechanism. Same thing with the other side. Insert my bushing from the inside. We'll tighten that down. You don't have to go with any magnificent amount of force there. Just tighten them down reasonably firm. And the same with this bottom portion. This guide rod assembly here, you can see it's got some jam nuts at the bottom, and at the top you've got a spring and a bushing right here, a collar, and there's a split ring right here. So that just goes right to this portion, and feed that up through the brass bushing, bronze bushing, and start your screw. Just hand tight is all you need. So it's back together, and you can see the operation. The spring here, when it's compressed, it's in the upward position, and it wants to forcibly return to the down position, whereas gathering powder in the down position, the hole to the drum is facing the powder. So that means that no matter how quickly you actuate your press, it's always got time to fully gather powder into that drum. And it's always the way you should have it, no matter what kind of powder measure you're using. If it's a drum measure, always have it gathering powder on the down finish stroke. And when you are charging powder, you charge it in the upward direction and then down. That's just standard for anything. So let's get this mounted right on the press. So the first thing we'll do is remove the 2 jam nuts from the reset rod. Get those out of the way. I'm going to remove some of that excess grease that it was packed with. As I say, your situation may differ. I have very dry conditions in my basement, so there's a little bit of grease. I'll leave that on this shaft because this reset rod is going to be actually traveling through the bronze bushing, which is in the back. So you can see this in the back here. There's a bronze bushing, and that reset rod will go straight down in, and with the thimble of this facing to the center of your press, to the center of the head. And I'll just lower that into position as I thread this directly in. Thread it in like any other loading die. Okay, once that die body, that adapter is flush with the underside of the head, then we'll turn down the lock nut on the top of this 7/8 inch die and finger tight, and then also reinstall our jam nuts. The jam nut, you basically put one all the way up to the top of the thread until it comes firmly in contact with the press, and then install the second one until it's snug against it. Just until it's finger tight for now, because I believe there's going to be more adjustment necessary. Well, we're just about ready to finish up this powder hopper. I've taken note that there are 2 holes in the bottom of this powder hopper, and be very careful what you do with this little envelope right here, this little plastic bag, the Ziploc bag. Not only is the powder damper inside that, but also are the 2 small, tiny set screws, and don't lose those. Because now, if you'll take note before you put the hopper on, take note which is the front side, and on this powder damper, this deflector right here, this equalizes weight of the powder so that it doesn't compress. You'll find identifying marker says front, and that front should be facing you and also oriented such that it's in line with the trademark on the hopper. Don't try to install it from the top down. I've tried to do that, and it just doesn't. It's very difficult to get it aligned. Take this damper and just wiggle it up inside until it's oriented correctly, and you'll see the 2 holes, the 2 engagement holes for the set screws. There we go. That set screw engaged that hole, and that's all it has to do. It just has to engage the hole in the side. The set screw has a pin on the end. I'll get on the other side here and tighten this one in just snug. It only has to engage that hole. That's all it has to do. There's no tightness involved. Just finger tight. There we go. That'll never back out. So we've got the damper installed. This is a very, very firm cover, but I'm not going to put this cover back on yet because I want things to be able to evaporate and dry thoroughly. So that's it for now. We'll leave that just loose like that so I can find it later. Well, we've achieved quite a lot. I'm going to call it quits for today. I've done enough. Benny's he's getting tired of working. He wants to go out and have a cigar with me. And this is his tradition, to go out and have a cigar at the end of the day when it gets around. What time is it? Oh, it's early yet, Benny. Oh, I know. Don't argue. It's early. Normally it's supposed to be 4 o'clock, but it's only 1:30. Yeah, we're 20 minutes to 2. That's early. Yeah, I know. You like to wind the clock back, huh? So anyway, everything is working beautifully. You know, I'm really impressed by everything that I have been working with here. This is a lot of engineering, a lot of ingenuity too. The designer was really thinking outside the box. Tremendous work here. I applaud him. So there are a lot of wonderful progressive presses out there on the market that have been doing good service for a long time. I recognize them and the accomplishments that they've had in the industry. But I got to say, I mean, for the money, I paid less than, you know, I got this on sale for $8.99, absent the shell plates naturally, because that's specific to calibers. But aside from that, for $8.99 on sale, they're currently going normally for less than $1,000. There's a lot of stuff here for $1,000. This is really just the weight of it, the mass of it alone. The fact that it's got 10 die stations. You don't have to use them all, but they can come in very handy for things such as powder checks. This one here happens to be this is the support die, which is used in conjunction with the swaging pin. You can have 2 decapping stations, which I will do. You can put in a universal decapping die in one of them, so that after the first one, use that as your first decapping die, and if the primer should get stuck, especially in military cases where the force on the original depriming can cause that primer to stick, and then it sucks back into the hole of the bottom of the case, and it can jam things up. So you get the first one can be a universal decapping die. The second one is your loading station, I should say your sizing station, and that also performs a second decapping operation in case there's anything it needs to flush out. Then you've got your swaging, and you can go on and do whatever you want to do. I mean, it's just, you know, there are some stations which are specific operations, and it tells you exactly what those are in the book. But I think it's a terrific press, and the lighted, the illumination, just something like that. Other companies charge you extra to buy some sort of gizmo to mount, you know, underneath your press as an afterthought. But this is all right there. It's there, and it comes with it. It's wonderful. And that shell plate is just unbelievable. That's quite a piece of workmanship and engineering. So thanks for watching, and for my Patreon donors, thank you for your support, your assistance, because, you know, without your assistance, I'd be able to get nowhere with this sort of programming. I wouldn't be able to show you things like this, and that's my goal. You know, I could never justify. I don't do the kind of shooting that would justify the kind of production that this is capable of. But I wanted to be able to bring something like this to you, and so that you'd know exactly what it's all about. That's what you're looking for, I think, with my productions. So thank you, and thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the thumbs up button. Please hit that thumbs up button right now, and hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed. Check it out. Make sure you're subscribed, and hit the bell so you know I'm around. And Benny and I bid you adieu. God bless.